This is the Halo version of the Machinima history. Um, Unfortunately, due to the amount of content that the Halo community has created, and me being out of the loop, I'm not going to really cover everything, but I will give you the prime cuts of what I believe has some notable impacts on the Machinima community, and just some really good films that are worth your time to check out if you can. As always, the links to the films and so forth are going to be in the show notes. Um, so let's get started. So the story for Halo starts quite interesting that it actually showed up on the scene at a Macintosh presentation by Steve Jobs of Apple back in May of 1999. He actually got the exclusive to show off Halo to the masses on a Macintosh, and definitely looks different than what you would expect when it was released a year later. But definitely was revolutionary. Definitely stuck to its tagline of "Combat Evolved." Another interesting side note to this event is that a few months after the event happened, Microsoft actually bought out Bungie. So they definitely saw that there was some potential, and the best way they felt to get it and keep it from anyone else was actually buy the whole company, and it would become the flagship game for their Xbox console that was going to be released also in the same year in 2000 or 2001 actually. Um, but moving on, so another interesting piece is that a year later, during more promotion for the game and also for NVIDIA's GeForce2 GTS card technology, is that they produced Bungie and NVIDIA did a collaboration where they did um, a trailer presentation of just showing off the new graphical features that their new card, the GeForce 2 GTS, the GTS stands for Giga Texture Shader, just for the geeks around there, and basically did a very slick job of creating a promo video that showed off all these different techniques, uh, like lighting rasterizers and uh, just a lot of technical babble that I can't really pronounce, but basically it was just a really good, cool video presentation that showed Machinima in a way that was promoting two products. You were promoting the features of a video card that wasn't released yet, but it also tied in with also promoting a game that would be actually using this graphical technology at the time was really cutting edge and really cool looking and made things a lot more cinematic potential. So moving forward, the game itself actually was released for the Xbox in November 15th of 2001. It was really popular, um, and basically, to keep it short and sweet, everybody loved it. I mean, a lot of people loved it. So that's that. So fast forward to one of the very first machinimas that I discovered, and probably a lot of other people did as well, is that Randall Glass, which is he's very well known for this film, which is the Warthog Jump. He released it around June of 2002, and basically it's a really neat 3-minute clip that shows off the ability to use real-time physics and using grenades and seeing what he could do with how to set up with the warthogs and other things such as soldiers and stuff like that, and just have just a fun old time with some sound effects and some musical tracks sprinkled in to kind of liven it up. But it just again back at that time was just really showing the power of Halo's physics engine and doing all this stuff in real time. It wasn't pre-rendered or anything like that. You could just have it, react to like ragdoll physics, where, in real time you can change and could be completely unpredictable of what could happen to items in the world because you're applying, gunshots or grenades. And that was very popular. And then fast forward a little bit more, we go into 2003. Obviously, the biggest one for that one is Red versus Blue. As most people know, they premiered their series on April 1st, April Fools of 2003. There's a famous story that goes along with it, is that Burnie Burns didn't think it was that popular, so he kind of put the file, the famous episode of Why Are We Here, on an unused server that he had in his office at the internet service provider that he was working at the time with Gus and Jeff. And unbeknownst to him, but someone on his staff actually came to his office and said, something's up. The bandwidth for the company is going through the roof, and we just don't know why. But we managed to locate the source of it somewhere in your office. He's like, do you know anything about it? And Bernie's like, nope. Looking at the vending machine. So when the IT guy left, he immediately unplugged it because he didn't want to get into trouble. But, just think, with that popularity, fast forward a few weeks later, they were getting over 100,000 downloads of that episode. And then a few more months after that, they reached 1 million. So again, he didn't think much of it, but it completely changed his life, obviously, and a whole bunch of other people's lives, because they really created a community that really changed, really binded people together, not just with Machinima stuff, but with anything else. They really, really took the community to heart, even to this day. And it definitely, me personally, it has affected my life in positive ways, and to other people as well. The good, the bad, and the ugly. But again, that's life. But it's still not something to be understated that they definitely had an impact, good, bad, or indifferent. It's undeniable. So, moving on, the PC version of Halo actually came out in September. So just 5 months later. So not too long, but finally people on the PC could enjoy what the whole hoopla was about it. Just 2 years later, about 1.5 years later. Moving on, another Halo series that was really popular in the vein of Red versus Blue, but with their own spin of it, is Fireteam Charlie. Fireteam Charlie was really popular. Back in the day, it had 3 seasons worth of content. It was produced by 2 guys out of Canada, but definitely something to check out. Moving on further, in 2004, still keeping in line with, very strong push of custom content, that Bungie released Halo PC Custom Edition. It was released on May 6th of 2004. Believe it or not, even to this day, in 2022, the community for custom content for Halo PC is still going strong. There was actually a documentary that was released about a few weeks ago that actually still chronicled that community still going strong, and the impact that it has on people just, doing what we do best, what people do best with their creativity, is they just continue to understand, try and figure it out, and create stuff that they want to see possible. So moving on even further, that you might not be familiar with this series, but it's important because it had an impact on my life and several other people's lives, because it was a perfect story of fandom kind of spinning out, but actually growing into their own right, where there was a group of people. The idea was broached in June of 2004 in the forums of Red versus Blue. Somebody had this idea to, create a series that would kind of give an homage to Red versus Blue, but kind of give it its own unique twist. So the basic premise was to kind of do a comedic story of the clashing between the sponsors of Red versus Blue, where the sponsors would pay $10 and they would have access to high-res videos, which back then was a big deal because, again, quality was definitely bigger and better. Bandwidth was expensive, but again, the $10 made up for it. and you also got a DVD of the season at the end of the run. So it was a twofer. But you had this other conflict where you have people that don't want to pay for it. They want access to that and they feel that they're entitled to it. So to sort of do an homage and tie it together with just sort of the drama that was happening in the forums, they created Sponsors versus Freeloaders. And for the first 4 episodes, they kind of worked with that dynamic where, they were trying to deal with, the freeloaders, and the sponsors were trying to maintain the defense to keep the, the high res video vault key from the freeloaders. And it was a very solid series. And then they did something really unusual, and I believe they did a really good job of it, is that after the first 4 episodes, you can only make fun of the freeloaders and squeeze the story out of that for so long. So they took a great risk, and they created this 5 episode arch that switched it from completely comedic to now you have a drama that deals with darker tones and more serious topics of just dealing with the situation of the sponsors actually dealing with their very survival as an unknown threat invades Blood Gulch, and all these new characters are injected into the story, and internal conflicts start bubbling over, and so on and so forth. But it was entitled the Flame War Saga, and basically they did a very good job in terms of visuals, the soundtrack, and the voice acting to sort of up their game as most should when you're trying to continue to grow in your skills and whatnot with your content to keep moving forward. Um, Unfortunately, they didn't finish the saga, but you got 5 really solid episodes to chew on. Moving on, there is a website that actually was created in July of 2004. Uh, Again, this is pre-YouTube, so it's quite an interesting um, perspective. I mean, a prospect actually, and it was a website called HaloTV.net. They were offering, their tagline was that here we have a website that offers 24/7 Machinima content, Halo Machinima, and also Halo clan matches with the commentary. Also a dedicated Red versus Blue channel with round the clock Red versus Blue content. Again, this is pre-YouTube, so definitely something that was something again moving up the ladder of just new ways to consume content and whatnot pre-YouTube, and I thought that was a pretty interesting situation or gift to the community, so to speak. Moving on, someone was with a lot of time on his hands, but also again, like a lot of these custom projects come out of just the question, can I do it? Or I really want to see it happen. There was a specific video called The Matrix Halo Remixed, and this individual, what they did is they took the audio from the movie and shot by shot recreated it in Halo as best they could, with the Spartans being all the different characters like Trinity and the cops and the agents and so on and so forth. So you had just the first 5 minutes intro and the person trying to reproduce it shot by shot with movements and all that other stuff. Um, so definitely something to check out. Another interesting film that also came out after this was The Heart is a Lowly Hunter. It was released to the public in October of 2004. It was a 30-minute straight-through comedy film with multiple characters, definitely really good voice acting, so on and so forth. And it definitely, as one, they actually had, the film was good enough that it was actually placed on a magazine's CD collection. So it was definitely into the masses that bought the magazine. But their tagline was basically saying it was Red versus Blue, but funnier. But even about 19 years later, it's still solid. I've actually just recently watched it again just to refresh my memory, and it still holds up even to this day. The other interesting thing, Burnie actually was saying in one of his reports of the promotions for Halo 2 is that he was reporting undercover from Camp Bungie about how they were having secret access to see how they could perform, new Machinima stuff on the Halo 2 game before its release. And they were able to really take advantage of that, I believe, because the next iteration of Red versus Blue definitely was able to take advantage of the new techniques that they were able to use, pre-learning the platform before everybody else. So the other thing that has also happened too is that Halo 2 comes out. It also came out in November 9th of 2004. Unfortunately, there wasn't much new content that I could tell. Most of the stuff that I could see, for the most part, seemed to stick with Halo 1, but there were several shows that I believe did actually use Halo 2. One of them is one I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes, but for the most part, most of the content I saw with Halo 2, there wasn't much, but again, I could have missed it because of all the content that was created and also me being kind of out of the loop. But moving on, we have for 2005, we definitely have some interesting bits. So the first one is the creation of the Codex series. The Codex series was done by a team by Edgeworks Entertainment. They, again, like the Sponsors versus Freeloaders, they, unlike that team, which went from comedy to drama, this one is pure drama from the get-go. And they mapped out 21 episodes. They're 3 to 5 minute pieces. The longest one, which was the season series finale, which clocked up at 13 minutes. So definitely easy stuff to chew on. And then it was so popular that they actually managed to put together a prequel, which was entitled The Heretic, and that also went for a few episodes as well. So definitely something different, because again, if being exposed to too much comedy might be a bad thing. So again, you can kind of have some balance with some drama. Also, the next thing, like I said, Halo 2, The Spartan Life, uh, created by Chris Burke, they premiered their talk show series like like they did with the Quake and late night and late night too. This is being done in in the Halo environment. And what's really very, very good about this Spartan Life is that fact is they were able to get some very high profile people, the Ill Clan being one of them, the composer for Halo, Marty, he was also included. Burnie was on it, and they did a in specifically on Burnie's episode, they did a really nice parody of "This Was a Wonderful Life" as part of a Christmas themed episode. So definitely, the team definitely did get a lot of really nice guests. To my knowledge, they were able to do 7 episodes, but they were broken down into modules. So you had 7 episodes, and each module you had 4 or 5 modules as a subset of that. So definitely a lot of content as well, and they definitely got press for their accolades as well. So nothing to really sneeze at. Another interesting point to make is that there was, and this is something I just discovered just a few days ago prior to this recording, but it was actually posted back in April of 2015, is that Louis Wu's HBO, the really, really popular fan site, they had actually had an article about these 3 churches in Texas that actually seem to use Halo as a platform to deal with the subjects of Christianity, and also how to be good people just in general, and also promoting a weekend thing, I believe, for teens, way back when in 2005. But I really think that, again, not expecting, the shooting, the comedy, stuff like that. It was just a really good, solid presentation of just using a game and using it as a performance piece. Same like what had happened with the French Democracy with the movies. This also kind of touches that as well, and I thought they were very good. Um, and it was, good enough that Louis Wu brought it to the people's attention because, with HBO, it's like being slash dotted. If you're on there, people are gonna, a lot of eyeballs are gonna be going to your site, and you're gonna know it real quick. Um, so that's definitely just a refreshing change like I said, they're really solid pieces and worth checking out. So the last two pieces that I have to mention are is another interesting thing that you probably have heard before, but if not, there was a user by the name of Amanda J362. Um, she actually she had a collaboration with the Sponsors versus Freeloaders team, and she actually had an interesting thing she did where she took, with the permission of the team, she was able to use green screening and the ability of her editing skills to, for the first time that I can tell, I didn't see it in Red versus Blue when she did it, so I'm ruling it that she's the first. But what she did is she used the green screen technique where she took the background of Halo, the world around Halo, and actually superimpose on top of that layer to one of her Sims. And she did a piece called "You're Fired," where basically, if you're familiar with the series, one of the characters named Crows, is not listening to his commanding officer, which is 7R, and basically 7R says, to deal with this problem, I need to use a flamethrower. So basically uses the flamethrower, and basically while doing that, he roasts Crows to a crisp and says, "You're fired." This is definitely predating Trump, obviously, but, a very interesting demo piece to show that it's possible. And what's interesting is that, again, like with the piece that I mentioned just previous to this, with the terms of the Christianity element to using Halo to tell stories in trying to promote or explain, Christianity and just being good people. That again, this was just used as a test to show the ability that people have been able to cultivate with their editing skills and using the software provided, you know, not part of the Halo package, but at least using your creative juices to remix things to add a bit more kick to it. So that actually, Louis Wu actually promoted it on his site as well. He was surprised to her of that as well, and she really got the attention, and it was just, again, one of those things where you don't expect it. You just think it's something you slap together. No one's going to think much of it, but it definitely left an impression. And just it's it's history noteworthy because, like I said, it showed the attempt to combine two engines, The Sims 2 and Halo, and trying to use it as, a story mechanism, which they were going to do, which I'll cover in The Sims 2, the Sims historical module of this, but basically, was going to do a story that used a spin-off story from the Sponsors versus Freeloaders story and create their own spin-off. And it was going to be a merging of the two, with Halo doing the Spartan stuff and then the Sims basically doing the other narrative sections as well. So it's a mishmash, but it was supposed to be really tight. They did three pre-episodes that were very solid. Unfortunately, it didn't go past that, but as I said, I'll cover that in more detail on the Sims 2 section, the Sim section. But again, noted of the growth that you're trying to do with what you have. And finally, the last thing, which is very important because it dealt with, this is in 2007. This was really at a critical juncture where Blizzard, Microsoft, and a couple other companies were trying to figure out, Machinima had gotten big enough that they couldn't ignore it, but they also had to deal with the legal ramifications of people trying to use their content, create content from their material, and they didn't want to get into trouble with all the legalese. So Blizzard and Microsoft wrote up these rule sets, but some people felt that the rule sets were too restrictive, or they just felt that they weren't being very accommodating. And there was a very well polished collaboration done between, Phil Rice, and which is Overman, one of the hosts of the show. He had a collaboration with Krad Productions. They put something together called Company Rulz. They used Halo and some custom content where Phil basically tries to explain, in layman's terms, what the new usage rules were and how, it would affect people. It was quite comedic, but, it was just a very good way of using the tools to try and explain something in plain English, and using visuals and also audible cues to tell you the difference of, what the impact of what you were going to originally be able to do and what the new rules impact would have had. But kind of an interesting twist at the end. They find out after the film is done that they changed the rules again, and it didn't really matter. But again, it was a very good training module for people to try and understand the rules that were trying to be set in this new world of trying to coexist with the people that created the games and having to deal with people that spin off that material into their own content and trying to navigate those, those choppy waters. But that's it for Halo. Like I said, it could have been longer, but I don't want to overburden people with a lot of stuff that, there's just too much content. And I acknowledge everyone that did the work, not forgotten, but it's just easier just to keep it concise here. So, as I said in the beginning, all the films are in the show notes. So check them out, have a bit of a nostalgic or a refreshing change for something different, if you haven't touched Halo or haven't seen Halo in a long time, that this is a good refresher to see what people have cooked up. And that's about it. So I'll see you guys next month. Maybe, depends. Just has to depend on the topic that we choose. But for now, Halo is done. Have a good day, enjoy, and that's it. Thanks, guys.